Have you ever stopped to think about all the differences there are when we choose the best characters or the best teams for a heist and the worst ones? That's right, my friends. In today's video, I'll be showing you all these differences, which are pretty cool. And I'm sure you guys will enjoy it because this video is going to be really good. With that said, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button right at the beginning of this video and let's get started. Let's start here talking about the jewelry heist. And in the jewelry heist, first we have the subtle approach, we have the obvious approach, and here we go. I'll try to be as clear as possible. The first thing I have to make clear is when you choose the worst team in the jewelry heist, you will have a specific dialogue from Michael. A dialogue for when you choose the worst team and a dialogue for when you choose the best team. In the dialogue for the worst team, he says something like hiring the worst in the market and that the heist could go wrong.
So you made savings on the personnel, huh?
Yeah, well, I figure they're on Lester's list of potentials. They can't be that bad.
Sure, man. What could go wrong?
Cheap hacker, cheap driver, cheap gunman. Pretty much everything could go wrong.
We got this, man. Don't worry.
And in the dialogue for the best team, he talks about hiring the best in the market, but cutting into all of his profit. It's like he's buying a heist.
Real work in years, so I'm giving half the take to guys who are supposed to be the best in the business.
All right. Then it's all taken care of. You on top of shit.
Yeah, do I need to give 12% to a gunman? 14% to a driver? 15% to a hacker? And that's on top of all the other outlays. I feel like a chump buying myself a score.
Shit. I guess we'll find out if they worth it, right?
In addition, we have some characteristics of each mission just so you guys can understand better. For example, in the worst team, in the subtle mode, the hacker, he will only give you 30 seconds, which will make Michael end up complaining. The hacker in this case is Ricky Lukens, who is the worst hacker we can hire for the jewelry heist. He will give you 30 seconds and then Michael will start a dialogue complaining to him.
Bros, I wouldn't stay in there too long, okay? This alarm is gonna go at some point.
You gotta be kidding me! Why did I employ a hacker who can't run antivirus software?
Additionally, the shooter you hire, when you hire the cheapest one, he can't collect all the jewels. So your profit there, which was supposed to be 4,900,000 and something, almost 5 million, actually ends up being 4.5 million. And to make up for it, this same shooter, who is usually Norm Richards, later on during the getaway, he will fall off his bike and die. You can still collect his bag with money and etc. But even so, his money that he died and all is given to someone else, to his family, I don't know, some close relative. In other words, this money doesn't stay with you. And speaking of the getaway driver for the jewelry heist, he'll get you racing bikes in case you pick the worst driver. That's because he won't do a terrain study and will bring the fastest bikes possible, regardless of where you'll be passing through. And besides, during the pursuit inside the tunnels and so on, he'll forget the way. So you'll be waiting there for a while for him to remember. And he doesn't remember. In the end, he just ends up going ahead and meets you there. In the obvious mode, we have some more differences when we hire the worst team. Because in the obvious mode, we rob the store, like with everyone awake, there during the day and so on. And then the manager and the security guard, they try to escape during this heist. And then if you're in the obvious mode with the worst team, if you don't aim at these guys, if you don't aim both at the manager and the security guard trying to escape, none of the shooters will do it for you. And then the heist can fail because they managed to contact the police somehow or escape. Already in the best option, like in terms of teams and all, if you choose Paige as the hacker, she will give you 90 seconds to complete the heist, which is way more than enough. Even Michael mentions that. He praises her a lot.
I've been able to get you around a minute and a half before the alarm will reset itself.
90 seconds? All right, that's why we pay you what we do. With a window like this, we should be able to strip the joint. Come on.
Ahora, hablando de la otra versión, you will be able to collect all the jewels if you choose a higher level shooter. It can be Paki or Gustavo Mota. Also in that chase, during the escape, all the shooters survive. Shooters, drivers, and so on. The bikes won't be racing bikes, they will be rally bike. Because when you pick a high level driver, he will scout the escape route before getting the bikes and so on. And these rally bikes are important for the sewer. And the driver, obviously being a more prepared guy, he doesn't forget the way. In the obvious mode, we have some more additions when playing with the best team. That is the security guard and the manager who try to escape during the heist while the heist is happening there. If you don't see them, but you have hired a good shooter, the shooter will end up surrendering the security guard and the manager. This will make the heist flow much easier. I won't talk about values here in this video because I don't think it's the main focus. For those who want the best team for profit, there's another video where you'll have to mix some people from the teams. I'll leave that video on the final screen for you or in the pinned comment. Now let's move on to the Paleto Bay heist. In the Paleto Bay heist, we only have one person to choose for the team, and the difference is very simple. If you you choose the worst shooters who go in there, I think it's Norm Richards and Daryl Johns. If you choose either of these two, they will simply die after the shootout. There's a part in the shootout where a police car comes from the front and ends up running them over against the wall, and both of them die. If you choose the best shooter, the guys will support you normally and stay alive, but nothing that really interferes or makes the heist difficult. Anyway, it's pretty easy. Now moving on to the FBI heist. The FBI heist has two ways to happen, which are the roof and the firefighter. And we also have bigger teams in the FBI heist. So let's go. In the FBI heist, when we choose the roof version, we don't have any deaths, even being the worst team. So talking about the worst team first, I think it's easier. Besides not having any deaths, when it comes to hacking the computer, where we have to run some programs, if you choose the worst hacker, which is Ricky Luckins, if he has no experience at all, like zero experience, he won't know exactly what he's doing. He will say something like, click on something like this, do I don't know what. And then when Michael manages to do things, he ends up telling Ricky that he managed to do it, but it wasn't thanks to Ricky. And Ricky gets a little upset saying, hey, no need to be aggressive and so on.
Way above my skill level. I might have to go back to school again, so I can drop out again.
All right, I'm connected. No thanks to you.
No need to be aggressive, bro. I'm stretching myself. I think you're looking for a password here.
Okay, I'm in. You got anything other than a guess for this part?
You never mentioned anything about networks, bro. Just saying.
Also, Ricky Luckins, he can't turn off the fire systems either, the anti-fire system, which are sprinklers. I think that's the name, sprinkler. I don't know.
Yes.
Dude, I would not know where to start. Maybe, like, take a screwdriver to him?
Of course. Why did I ask?
Si contratas al segundo hacker, podrá guiar a Michael correctamente en la parte del ordenador. Cuando llegues allí te irá diciendo qué hacer, cómo hacerlo, todas las coordenadas bien. And lastly, what really messes things up here, I believe in this part of the mission, is when you choose the worst of them all. It's at the end of this mission. The getaway driver, he ends up arriving very late in a black van, and because of that, right in the middle of the whole shootout, you know, and then because of that, a 4-star pursuit ensues where you have to escape. So it's a pretty cool scene, you know, I won't lie. But that's what happens when you choose the worst driver of them all in the FBI heist rooftop version. If you choose the firefighter version, instead of no character dying in this one of the characters ends up dying in the worst team. So you picked there Norm Richards, Hugh Welsh, Daryl Johns, the weakest guys of all with the smallest slice of the pie. There's a moment there where a door explodes and one of them will always end up dying. Furthermore, the hacker, when you pick him up with no experience at all, and the worst of all, which is Ricky, he also won't be able to help you with almost anything, because in the other version of the heist, he couldn't turn off the fire suppression system, and in this one, he won't be able to either. As for the getaway, there's no difference at all. It continues exactly the way it was before. Now, moving on to the best team for the FBI heist, we have the following. In the roof approach, if we choose Paige Harris as the hacker, she guides you exactly on what to do and how to do it. Like, as soon as you start, she's already giving instructions like click this, do that, and so on. This hacker can either be Ricky Luckins, like after completing the jewelry heist, then he will be better. Or it can be Paige Harris directly, in which case she will already be better. The intermediate hacker, if they have already done some heist, can also handle this part. And in the best team, they can also disable the fire suppression system, so that water keeps falling during the shootout when Michael and Franklin are escaping. And then, if you have a good hacker, they can disable that and make the whole scene much cleaner. And to wrap things up here, in the best team rooftop version, when you get down there, the getaway driver, he's already there, he's not late, and he's using an ambulance instead of a black van to blend in with the crowd. If you get into the ambulance and don't shoot anyone, you guys can escape perfectly without attracting the police's attention. And in the firefighter mode, when you assemble the best team, no one dies, okay? So with the worst team, one guy dies in the firefighter version. With the best team, no one dies. And the hacker can also disable the fire suppression system. And now, moving on to the big heist. In the big heist, we have much more differences in the subtle version than in the obvious one. So here we go. Starting with the subtle version, we will only have differences when we are already halfway through this heist. In that part where we are taking the money from the armored cars and putting it inside the getaway cars, and it's at this point that the difference begins. When you place a bad shooter who is from the worst team, the bad shooter, he will carry the gold from the armored car to the getaway car. But I don't know if he drops it or he fails to carry almost 40 million. It's a lot, man. Like, it was supposed to be 200 million and it could end up carrying 160 million. If this guy has a little experience from previous heists, he will carry around 180 million. But even so, you still lose a lot of money by putting a bad shooter in this heist. And then after that, imagine imagine that you put the worst guy there. You lost 40 million in the gold loading. When you escape by car, there are 4 equally loaded cars. So imagine that 160 million divided by 4. Each car has 40 million. One of the drivers, if you choose Karin Denz with no experience, he will end up succumbing to pressure ahead and will lose a quarter of the cargo. That can represent another 40 million or even 50 million, depending on whether you manage to complete the loading. The good thing about this guy here, this driver, is that you can save this cargo. So if you manage to be fast enough to blow up the police vehicles and kill the cops who surrounded that guy, he will also be able to escape and you won't lose the money from this heist. But you know, the first time we're completing the game, we hardly do that. In the obvious version of the big score, there's no difference at all. You know, I think throughout the whole heist, the only difference we're gonna have when we choose the worst team within the obvious big score, which is big score B, is that the helicopter pilot at the end of the mission there, like to really finish it with 2 minutes left, he ends up crashing the helicopter, dying and losing half of the cargo, which means in this case $100 million, which is a lot. When we choose, for example, the best team in the subtle approach mode, there are those guys who were struggling during the loading. They can quickly carry the 200 million, which also reduces your shooting time against Merryweather and allows you to escape perfectly, meaning all the drivers can follow smoothly there without any headaches. And in the obvious version, the helicopter pilot over there who had crashed and screwed up and died with half of the cargo manages to escape without any damage. And just to finish talking about the big subtle score, we also have a hacker in the big subtle score. I had forgotten to mention it at the beginning, and we have a slight difference between the worst hacker, which would be Ricky Luckins, inexperienced, to the best hacker, which would be either Ricky Luckins with experience or Paige Harris, who is always the best hacker by far, especially in the traffic part. There's a moment there where we're controlling the traffic lights and so on, and if you're with Ricky Luckins without experience, when you press to change the traffic light, that light takes a while to change because the connection Ricky made is crap. However, when you're with Ricky with experience or even Paige Harris, they can execute this 100% instantly. There's also an intermediate point, like if Ricky doesn't have enough experience and all, like he'll just reduce the lagging time, but it won't be 100% zero.
Alright, so lagging, and there it is.
It's cool to see these details. I didn't focus much on showing you the dialogues among other things, and I certainly didn't focus on showing all the possibilities. If you want to see all the heist possibilities within GTA 5, all the dialogues and so on, there's a really huge video about that, and by clicking here next to the yellow arrow, you'll be redirected to that video, which, trust me, my brother, is awesome. A real bomb of concentrated information. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, leave a like and subscribe. And if you want a better team to make money, I'll leave the link here in the description for you to check out as well. That's it, folks. Thanks, success, cheers, and see you later.